You probably want to find the final and ultimate truth about the year 2012, Mayan calendar, biblical end times, end of the world, doomsday. Well, let me introduce myself briefly. My real name is Daniel Eli. Now, I went on an incredible spiritual journey beginning in October of 1999, where it was revealed to me by divine voice that I was the reincarnation of Daniel of the Bible. Now, the thing is, I knew nothing of the Bible. I was not raised religious, never went to church. Now, this was in the presence of God. Now, that began a very, very incredibly powerful, prophetic, messianic, angelic type of awakening, right? This was the ultimate in awakenings, which is documented in a free-to-read, not-for-profit, not fictional story called finalbookofdaniel.com. Now, I'm going to attempt to describe as accurately as possible here in this video what I witnessed on August 3rd, the year 2000. Now, in those days, a decade ago, way before all this talk about 2012 Mayan calendar, long before all these characters about David Wilcock, all these experts that you hear nowadays, and by the way, as of this mid-year 2011 video, I am still not an expert on the whole year 2012 stuff. Now, I did buy the books about 2012. They're sitting there, but I've not read them. All these other videos and websites that you see out there, I've not actually read them yet, right? So do not imagine this is something borrowed from someone else's material, and do not imagine this is imaginary fantasy borrowed from biblical interpretation. Okay, this comes from someone whose heart had become purified, so innocent of heart and such a truth seeker that God allowed me to actually be physically transported into the future from the year 2000 to actually witness the biblical end of the world, the end of everything, the end of the days, end of the world, the dissolving of the elements, the second coming, Judgment Day. I witnessed all of this come to pass with my physical eyes. I must emphasize again, this is not fiction. It's all real. Now, I witnessed all of this. I experienced it firsthand. This is not a dream. This is not a psychic vision. This is not an out-of-body experience. It's not astral traveling. It's nothing of that sort whatsoever. Now, this is only a 15-minute video or so, so it has to be brief. If you wish to read more about it, you can go to the website. Now, in those days, see this book, finalbookofdaniel.com, this is 10 years old. Now, in the words that were described in those days is what a lot of people, the so-called experts, are trying to describe nowadays, yet I witnessed all of this firsthand. Now, this is probably the most important and profound videos and stories you will ever come across. It's all true. Now, I'm one of these rare, very, very rare holy grails in human history ever to actually physically be there in the future to witness this event come to pass. Contained in my physical memory and consciousness exists in words that are really still not yet describable. The vision is still there, memorable, etched into my mind a decade later. It is now mid-2011 as this video is made. Now, what happened briefly is this. With very little prior biblical knowledge, I sent out a newsletter. At this point, my psychic ability was very, very high after this spiritual awakening of October 99. Now, on August 1st, 2000, I sent out a newsletter. Now, I began picking up massive telepathic psychic phenomenon as a result of sending this newsletter, right? I could actually perceive people reading it, right? Collectively. This brought massive, violent thunderstorms, including tornadoes, into my desert city of Boise, Idaho. Massive winds crashing around. Now, I felt in my body a divine pressure and energy building. It was very uncomfortable. And I was sitting there meditating, knowing something was happening, odd, strange, right? So I laid down, unable to take this pressure, so I laid down. Immediately after I laid down, my physical body was bilocated, duplicated. I had two physical bodies. Now, the way this happened was an angel, a massive, powerful blue angel, made of light, massive wings that extended beyond the room, 8 feet tall. He was present, and he was altering space and time around me and within me, everywhere. The walls were buckling in, the air was changing form. Now, this angel transported the body that was standing next to the bed into the future, right through to in the northern direction, in the city that I lived in. Now, I somehow became the future version of me, yet I was somehow conscious of the past, the year 2000. Now, I was not told the exact day. I was not told it was 2012. You know, the Bible states that no one knows the exact day or the hour. So I don't exactly know which precise day. It could be December 21st, right? But I'm not actually going to state that. However, what I observed, and I'll try to describe this as accurately as possible. Now, this is what the Bible describes as the second coming, right? The Son of Man appearing in the eastern sky. Everyone would see him, visible to everyone. Now, what happened was I was standing there. I was the future version of me in Boise, Idaho, in the future. It was daylight. I was looking around, and I was watching all this panic going on. And I was able to perceive, even though I was only there for the last 5 to 10 minutes before this exponential increase to 0 point, the final judgment, the end of time, I witnessed, it seemed to be about 3 days previously, up to 7 days, but I know it was about 3 days, that everyone gave up their jobs, started panicking, giving up everything, right? Family, duties, everything. People running in the streets. It was chaos. I could perceive that and see that, witness that firsthand, right? Visually. I also witnessed people praying. I was on the street, and in front of me, there was a man running in front, panicking. Now, he was wearing a yellow sweater, about 40 years old, short hair. Now, he was pointing to the northern sky. Now, this is where God was appearing, right? And when I say God, do not use that term lightly, because what I observed was God, very incredibly, terrifyingly, in ways that words cannot describe, not physical Jesus, something far in excess of this, aligned to the North Pole, taking up 1/4 of the sky, not physical, something far greater, terrifying presence. God was descending, but also it was happening on the South Pole as well. God was descending on the South Pole. God was appearing everywhere. The entire planet, while I watched all this occurring rapidly, was ascending, right? This was all occurring in an exponential, I cannot emphasize that word enough, exponential, ever-increasing acceleration, rapidly spiraling. Now, when I say those words, you have to picture in your mind what I observed around me visually and within our bodies and the atmosphere. Now, everything was changing form, right? The nature of time, the nature of the light in the atmosphere, the sun, all of that was changing form. The sky was getting dark, altering the cells in our bodies, or the atoms, the nature of physics, science, astrophysics, gravity, all of that you think is reality. I watched all of that unfold before my very eyes. Now, the words to describe these things so you could picture them in your mind, I have still not found yet, the English words, to properly, accurately describe this. Now, the only way to properly describe this is an ever-increasing consciousness. Now, this consciousness and energy or frequency, omnipresent, that we could feel in our bodies and minds and in our own consciousness, was all pervasive, and we could tell it's divine energy. We could perceive that. Now, the very nature of physics, the nature of reality as we know it, was unfolding, unraveling, exponentially, right, in these last few moments. Everything was ascending. Some say third to fifth dimension, right? Now, you could say whatever dimension you want. It was the merger of heaven and earth. This is also what the Bible describes as the coming of the New Jerusalem. Now, the reason I call this is known as the merger of heaven and earth is because I witnessed firsthand, I watched as colors like nature, like leaves, flowers, grass, lose their stems. The leaves began glowing with heavenly colors as they lost their stems. The grass, the flowers, all of this was ascending into heavenly colors, beautiful heavenly colors. Now, I watched in the distance as man-made buildings, they actually started crumbling to dust. I watched, observed. They crumbled instantly, right, in a matter of seconds, under the power of God, as God was descending, as the earth was ascending. Now, in these last few exponential seconds and minutes, what happened was that all these people praying in the street, in big prayer circles, there's panic, people running. Now, they started to collapse unconsciously, as though they were just dead, right? Just laying there in the street. One by one, they started dropping. Now, I was the only one standing in those last few seconds, a fraction of a second, as this terrifying... you see, this was so incredible. When I say words like terrible, great and terrible, day of the Lord, terrifying, exponential increase, glory of God, those kind of words do not do justice, right? You think this is an exaggeration? It is not, my friends. I witnessed all of this come to pass. Now, in those last few those last few seconds, the very nature of everything that you know about science, reality, material realm, physical, astrophysics, gravity, cells, atoms, there was almost nothing remaining. Under the inexplicable power of God, there was, becoming omnipresent everywhere within our bodies. Our bodies were changing form. Physical mutating into spirit, into a new higher body. We could actually perceive this within our body as it was mutating. Now, this divine pressure was so incredible that I actually fell to my knees and hands and knees in those last few seconds. I tried raising my head and looking to the direction of God, but I couldn't. In those last few seconds, it was as though there was a flash of light where time itself stood still under the presence of God everywhere. Now, this is what some are calling now, and a decade later, they're using terms like zero-point energy or singularity, the null point or null zone or 0 point or whatever. I witnessed that firsthand, right? Now, I prayed out to God at this point. I couldn't take this pain and pressure of my body. So I said, God, please stop. I can't take this anymore. Now, I noticed in that last second that all my sins that I ever made became openly visible to everyone, to the universe. That was the judgment day, the biblical judgment day of all the big religions. This is what it's all about. I was judging myself, but God was judging me too somehow, right? And I remember feeling ashamed somehow, right? Guilty a little bit. Now, at that point, when I said, God, please stop this, please stop. Now, God listened, right? At that last fraction of a second, I was physically transported back into the past, year 2000, August 3rd, where my two physical bodies merged, where this angel that was at the foot of my bed, present, merged my two physical bodies, then passed through me and disappeared somehow into me or through me, sending chills down my spine and everything. Now, the weather, the massive thunderstorms, tornadoes, wind, they came to an immediate dead calm as soon as that happened, that instant. No more wind, nothing, silence. And I laid there for a half an hour, contemplating. I witnessed the end of everything. I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I